to unite, how we need to work together. But I know we have 2 new frameworks that have come up. So in February this year, I think 2026 has been a good year for Africa and for the debt conversations, because in February we saw the African leaders adopt the Common Africa position on debt. And then 2 months later, in DC, developing countries launched the Borrowers Platform. So we are seeing those 2 things, and we are hoping that there will be some alignment to support Africa in moving our position from the fragmentation that we've had. And so these mechanisms, we hope that will coordinate countries and build their agency. And so the question we are trying to ask ourselves today is, what will it take to actually have them working? Because remember, in the previous sessions, we've talked about debt being about power, about sovereignty. And when we look at the global architecture, that is not well represented. So we also want to know, apart from being adopted and being implemented, how are the people being factored in? Because it's the only way we move to power. I think for Kenyans, especially our constitutions, we say power belongs to the people. So even as we work on good frameworks, are people reflected? Are people's needs and demands being reflected? And so to help us have this conversation, I would want to invite, we have 4 panelists who will help us try and unpack and see how better do we make these frameworks work, and how better can we see the will of the people reflected. So our first panelist is Florence Mwale. So I'd request that she comes up on the podium. She's a senior program officer at the Alliance for Community Action in Zambia. She holds a bachelor's degree in development studies and public administration. She's a master's candidate of business leadership and management strategy with over 6 years of leading governance programming, building citizen capacity to demand accountability and strengthen community-based organizations' institutional capacity. She's very passionate about community development. So welcome. Please, let's give him a round of applause. Oh, sorry, a round of applause. So the next panelist is Bob Kikuyu. He is a theology and development specialist, currently serving as a senior theology advisor for Christian Aid. He's an international humanitarian and Christian Aid, which is an international humanitarian and development organization. He's also a board member of Christian Aid Kenya. His responsibility is to ensure that policies, practices, and processes of the organizations are underpinned by theology and how it provides critique for development. So before joining Christian Aid, he was the executive director for Edu Kenya, which is a Nairobi-based NGO providing transformational education opportunities for marginalized children. So he also served for 18 years as a clergy, 11 of which he was a senior minister for Life Spring Chapel, a non-denominational church. Welcome, Bob. We need to applaud him. researches and engages with member country representatives and broader civil and academic society on sustainable sovereign debt, financing for development, and the nexus between debt and climate finance. She represents UNCTAD at the G20 International Financial Architecture Working Group meetings and is the G20 Finance Deputy to UNCTAD Secretary General and represents UNCTAD in several fora, including the recent Fourth International Finance for Development, FFD4, G24 meetings in DC. So let's also give her a round of applause. And the fourth panelist is Shem Joshua, who is joining us physically. He is a development economist and public policy professional specializing in economic governance, public finance, debt sustainability, and development financing in Africa. He's currently serving as an advisor to the Commissioner for ETTIM at the African Union Commission, where he supports policy work on debt, policy, research, advocacy, and African development. So, welcome, Joshua. So in this session, round of our discussions with panelists, we'll come back to you to answer your questions. And so I would want to start with our online panelist, Dr. Penelope. I hope you can hear us.
Yes, thank you. I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, maybe as she gets ready, or she can hear us? Okay. So, to you, Dr. Penelope, so I would want us to start off with the borrowers platform, because we know it seeks to address the imbalance, because we've seen the coordination that is there with creditors, and so we are hoping that this platform is going to also help the coordination of borrowers. But we would also want to see how do we translate that bargaining power, and how do we ensure that the platform actually shifts the power balance that has been there between the creditors and the borrowers. Because at what point do we get the leverage to ensure that the platform actually addresses the power imbalance that we have been seeing? Over to you, Dr. Penelope.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the warm welcome to the panel. Can I ask if you can hear me clearly?
Yes, we can hear you clearly.
Wonderful. Thank you. If there is a problem with the transmission, will you tell me? Maybe I could switch off my camera, but otherwise I will go ahead.
Yes, I'll give you a signal in case that happens.
Thank you. So thank you very much for giving a chance to talk about the Borrowers Platform. As you may be aware, this has been something that has been a long time coming. Certainly within the within the UN and in UNCTAD, we have been talking about this at least since COVID, where it became very apparent how in a time of global stress, there was really no coordinating mechanism or space for borrowing countries, who of course have been most dramatically affected by rising debt costs. There was no coordination mechanism for them. So while the big and powerful countries were able to start designing something like the G20 Common Framework, and however we may believe this is effective or not, at least there was a mechanism for those creditor countries to come together to design something. But the borrower countries were largely left out of the mix, except to the extent that one by one they were allowed into the common framework processes. Now, at the launch in April this year, we had a statement by the Maldives, which I think very clearly put out the problem. And that is, he made it, the speaker, Mr. Muhammad Ali, said, the problem is that the system that we have was built without us. It was built without developing countries. That wasn't malicious. It was simply, at the time, nobody understood the developing countries as even needing a voice. So post the Second World War in 1945, nobody cared about what the developing countries thought. Many of them were still under colonial rule. Now, the system has not really changed much since that time. So if you look, for example, at the voting rights, even in a place like the World Bank or the IMF, while it has been celebrated that Africa now has one more chair to allow for Southern African representation, actually it's changed nothing about the voting rights. So we have a situation where the developing countries are grossly underrepresented in the key international financial institutions. Now, the question that you ask me is, so let's say they have a voice in the borrowers platform. How does that actually translate into changing power relations? Because as I think people keep saying, power